Hey, what's up? It's Keith Kalfas, and I want to share something with you. My first couple years in small business were an absolute living hell. Absolute living hell. And I know that a big percentage of that was my perceptions because I was afraid, I was broke, I didn't know how to sell, I didn't know anything about marketing and advertising, I didn't know how to conduct myself around customers. All I knew was how to be, in a dead-end job. So in getting into a small business, it's a whole new world where there were no boundaries set up by a boss. This thing is like limitless. And all I would hear around me was other small business owners when I would seek their advice or mentorship bragging about how good they're doing or about how they're crushing it, and they weren't vulnerable enough to say, I know what you're going through, Keith, man. I went through that too, but this is what I found, right? And there were times where it felt like it was a nightmare to me because I was getting myself caught up in all these little scenarios and situations that I had never been in before, so I wasn't well versed in it, and even the smallest little hiccup felt like a nightmare to me, right? I was an absolute wuss about this, but from that perspective, rightfully so, because I couldn't afford to make a single mistake. I was riding on the edge. I was riding on a dream. I was riding on a shoestring. And if you're going through that, I know exactly what you're going through. I went through it, and I still go through this stuff all the time. Running a small business, sometimes it's very rewarding, but also a lot of times it could be a living hell. It could feel like something like you can't wake up from. But you know what? I don't know any other way until you can get to the point where you make enough money in your small business where you can actually invest in, residual income producing assets like real estates and stocks and bonds and mutual funds and all types of this, and gold and silver and precious metals, and then income producing assets that throw off passive income and build a whole portfolio of that. And then you get to the point where now you're making so much residual income you can systematize and automate your small business to the point where other people are running it for you. But that takes leadership. That takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of relentless passion and persistence in pursuing a higher level of self, but sometimes you can't do that. Well, you can't really do that in the beginning unless you come from a family who's, really bred you up to be that way. Why? Because I'm really into this psychology of success in the sympathetic nervous system, literally neurology in the brains and how they fire. I know I'm real hyper here. I'm just really passionate. I want to get all this out, and I want you to stick with me on this. When something happens, like a little hiccup, but you're like broke and you perceive it to be like this nightmare, what happens? Your brain starts pumping out epinephrine and cortisol pumps through your body. I can't think of all the words, but anyways, they're actually hormones that put you in a state of like fight or flight. You're totally stressed out. The frontal cortex of your brain shuts down, and you can't think logically and clearly and strategically and rationally to completely get in an observant mindset and go, okay, this is hell right now, but we need to do this, in this order, and just work it out until it's done. That's what you would love to do. And sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can be in that peak state where bam, 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 bam. You can muscle through it, or you can be objective and be a leader and leader your way through it, or put other people to work, whatever it may be. But other times you can become I've shot this video like 10 times and I'm just not going to shoot it again. I'm just going to keep going. You can become completely hijacked, where now you have lost access to those resources and you go into this like nightmare mode where you literally like your brain cowers and you're just getting ran over by your business. You're getting ran over by people. People are taking advantage of you. Your customers can smell it. They walk all over you. And now literally you're getting ripped off and you're losing money. And this is things that I believe a lot of small business owners go through, but they're not going to talk about it on Facebook or on social media. They're not going to talk about it with their wives or with their families. You can't talk about that with people, because when a grown man or a grown woman is supposed to be running a business and being successful, and now they're crying because they're going through all this crap, people don't want to hear it. They say, get your act together and get back in shape. I don't want to hear it. What you need to do is this. Well, you need to find better workers. What you need to do is you need to sell bigger jobs. What you need to do is get a degree in this. What you need to do is that. You need to get your shit together. That's why you're feeling, and all you get is all that from people. You just get like total, just people just telling you shoulda done this and shoulda done that, and judging and criticizing. And now you feel even worse. So People, small business owners get so stressed out and so bound up so tight, and the only thing that they know how to do is just work harder and harder and harder and work longer hours and sleep less and say, I'll just do whatever I got to do to make it work. And that was me. And I'll tell you one thing, like, that still is me in some parts of my business, because there's certain blocks that feel so impossible to get through because, Albert Einstein said that you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking you were at when you created the problem. You must rise to a new level. And it's really funny, even for me in like social media, to talk about certain things. It's always the more successful guy always looks down on the guy who's lower and say, well, if you were like me, I but why don't you, that's what I really like about strategic coaching, what I really like about real mentorship. It's saying, I know exactly what you're going through. I've been through it, and I went through that hell, and here's what I learned. When you take a deep breath, hold it. Oh, there's chaos going on. I don't got time for a breath. Well, guess what? And learn how to say no in those moments. There's chaos going on in your business. It all happens at once. Now the phone's ringing all of a sudden when you're like in a nightmare mode and you got a flat tire and you're late for a customer, and then this employee didn't show up for work, and then this customer's pissed and this thing broke down all at once, and you got a flat tire and another customer calls. If you pick up the phone and you say, like, you can't do that. Like, literally start saying no to things all at the same time and just doing the one thing or the one or two things that are the most important. But here's the problem. When you need money and you're in your broke paradigm cycle, you keep saying yes to everything. And then when you finally go to bed at night at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning, you're laying there like that cat from Looney Tunes, like so stressed out because you realize, oh my God, if I didn't say yes to all this and I don't keep packing on all the work on the calendar to keep us working, you realize that you are the muscle that makes the business work. You are the rat that runs on the wheel that makes the money come in, that pays for the bills and keeps all the lights on and keeps the food and the health insurance and the home insurance and the life insurance and the fire insurance and the fuel and the trucks and the general liability and the policy and the taxes and all that. Like, it costs you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month just to make this business run, and you don't start making profit until after you've crossed that threshold, and now you start to make profit. So you find yourself where you're just laying in bed completely exhausted with bags in your eyes and you're so burned out you can't even get out of bed. That's what happens in small business. My first 3 years in business, I worked 7 days a week, 90 to 100 hours a week nonstop. It was like being burned in hell. And then still in my business now, I work an average of 70 hours a week, right? And in the winter, I work less, right? But I remember, getting off work 10 o'clock at night and going to the office. And my wife called me, when are you going to be home? Dinner, when are you going to be home? I'm like, I'm going to the office to get paperwork done. What do you mean you're going to the office to get paperwork done? It's 10 o'clock at night. I said, yeah, and I won't be home till 1 o'clock in the morning. What do you mean you won't be home at 1 o'clock in the morning? I said, if I don't go and get the paperwork done, then the paperwork won't get done. And if the paperwork doesn't get done, then the bills don't get paid. If the bills don't get paid, then lights get shut off. And I go all the way, and nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear your problems. Nobody wants to hear it. All they want to know is that all the lights are on and everything's happening. There's presents under the Christmas tree. Nobody wants to hear it, right? So what do? You say, then I'm just going to have to work harder. I'm just going to have to work faster. I'm just going to have to be stronger. I'm just going to have to think faster. I'm just going to have to sleep less. I'm just going to have to skip lunch and hold it in when I got to use the bathroom. And then what do people say? You got to learn how to delegate. You got to learn how to delegate. Well, if you don't have experience in leadership and delegation and hiring employers and screening employees and setting up and the driver's license and social security number and payroll taxes and all that, and then setting up training systems and learning how to train them and lead them and know when to hire and when to fire, who you can trust, and then employees are like smashing your trucks and messing up your stuff and destroying your equipment and getting, partying on the weekdays and not showing up to work, and you're pulling your hair out, and then people say, well, you need to find better guys. You need to pay your guys better. If you paid better guys and you had better this and that, then so what do? You start paying guys better. And then they get used to it. And then you realize, I can't even afford to pay these guys. I'm going to have to raise the prices on the customers. So you raise the prices on the customers and you start losing the customers because the customers don't want to pay those type of prices. You say, how am I supposed to run a legitimate company when the customers don't want to pay the prices? Well, you got to have systems and protocols, and you got to learn how to market better and learn how to advertise better. And then you got to have a 12-month marketing calendar and learn a lot about marketing and copy and persuasion and techniques and coupons and selling and time of year and season and all that. And then you have to market like crazy to bring in the customers into a sales funnel and then pre-qualify them and narrow them down to the ones that are willing to pay the highest. And the ones that are willing to pay the highest, then you got to bring them into the customer life cycle. And after you do that, you have to take and get their email, put them in an autoresponder sequence, and then sell to them repeatedly, and then turn those customers into clients and the loyal buyers, repeat them, and put them in an ascending upscale process so you could sell them into higher and higher price things and then lock them in. Then get them into prepaid, and then lock them in for the next service and this service. Then ask them all for referrals over and over and over. Ask them for so many referrals. They're like, too many referrals, right? Then you got to sign up with Signpost and Angie's List and Yodel and Yahoo and Bing and do search engine optimization. Have a WordPress site and a Google and a Facebook, and now start doing Facebook ads. And you got to do all this shit all at once. So you're now texting when you're driving, and you're doing you're going to put a laptop in your car and you're going to be doing it on the phone. No. You need to get a secretary. You got to get a secretary. You got to get a secretary and a social media manager and a marketing agent to do it, but you don't have any money to do all this stuff. How are you going to get the money if you don't know how to do it? So now you're in this catch-22 trap where you feel like you have to do all this stuff at once. You got to raise all these things up at once, but you can't. So you're jumping around like Speedy Gonzalez, and you're losing your fucking mind, right? And then people say, you're doing too much. You're taking on too much. You take on too much. You need to just focus on one thing. You just need to get a job. That's fucking small business. That's fucking small business. For you. Okay, so if you're going through all that shit, or if you're not going through that shit, you're gonna go through that shit. And if you're going through that shit, welcome to the club. There you go. I hope that, now everything I said, I don't mean to be negative, but it comes out because it gets emotional about it, but I just want to say that that's exactly what you go through, and that's what a small business is like. I talk to people who run small businesses, and it's all the same shit. That's life. And when you begin to accept that, and you fully accept it, and you breathe into that, and you say, you know what? Whew, I better get a little bit more clear and have a little bit more clarity about what I choose to do with my time, what customers I choose to do work for. Because once you're caught up in all that and all this, you start to really value yourself and your life and your time better, and then you start saying, wow, I'm not getting caught up in any more people's dramatic bullshit. I'm not getting caught up anymore in people's dramatic bullshit, people that suck your time and vampires and time wasters and customers that want to take advantage of you. You're done with it. You don't want to get caught up in doing work for peanuts that you don't want to do anymore. And once you raise your standards, you raise and elevate your standards, and you start being more definitive and certain about what you want and where you're going, and you get crystal clear about it, you start getting it a little bit more. You start getting it a little bit more because you know that you deserve it, because you've been through the gamut, you've been through the ringer, you've been through the hole, you've been in the hole, you got out of the hole, you fell back in the hole, got out of the hole, fell back in the hole too many times. You say, I'm not going down back down that fucking hole, right? That's when you get to the point where you say, you know what, I'm getting my shit in line, and it's fucking grind time. People keep saying you need to stop cussing. I'm working on it. When I get anxious, I mean, emotional, it comes out. But I do get anxious too. So cool, I hope you enjoyed that video, and see you very, very soon. End of video. Thank you.